Hi everyone, this is Madison and I am re-recording Alef-Bet Primer Week 1 class and practicing how to record it next week. So this is for anyone who missed the class or just wants a little refresher. So as you can see, we're starting from the beginning. The first thing I always like to do is go over how the class and how the home learning routines will be, because once you understand the routine after this week, everything will be the same. And what you'll find is just new letters, new vowels, new drills will be substituted, but the routine will be the same. We'll learn new consonants, how to identify them, what the English sound equivalents are. We'll learn our new vowels, how to identify them and the English sound equivalents. New consonants, we're going to talk a little bit about blocked and script this week because that can cause some confusion with new learners. And we're going to talk about the cadence drill review, which is practicing our reading, and the sound production and reading practice. And then we are going to talk about homework. So every week it's going to be the same. Okay, the Hebrew alphabet is a Semitic language that uses Aramaic script. So there are previous ways, Proto-Hebrew, you've heard about a lot of different things, but basically I just want you to know that we're talking about the Semitic Hebrew language, but we're talking about an Aramaic script. There's 22 letters. All of them are consonants, so there are no letters that are vowels in the Hebrew language. The letters are never connected, and there is no capital or lower letter distinction. So for those of you who always had your papers corrected when you were in elementary school for not capitalizing, guess what? You'll never have that problem in Hebrew. Also, each letter has a numeric value. I just want you to know that. You don't need to worry about that right now, but I just wanted you to know that. Okay, vowels are a modern 10th century adaptation if you consider the 10th century to be modern. So what happened was around the 10th century, a little bit before, due to the expulsions and pogroms and everything that had been happening through our history to that point, we found out, or the rabbis found out as a group, that people were having a hard time being able to read the Hebrew. Because as you know, Hebrew in the Torah, there are no vowels. And if you don't know some of the tricks of how to read the Hebrew in the Torah, you can't pronounce it. So in order to preserve the language, the leaders and educators and rabbis came up with these marks or symbols to represent the vowels, to help us retain and preserve our language. And this is the modern, essentially, since the 10th century, unchanged Hebrew language. Okay, I always give my adults a warning, especially if you have children. Do not sing the Alef-Bet song. The Alef-Bet song teaches you to sing a song, not identify and recognize the letters. We're learning the letters in the order that they're most commonly used. And the goal of this class is to be able to basically do a flashcard drill and be able to say, this is this letter, this is this letter. Just like if someone showed you a letter and said, hey, what's this letter in English? You'd say B, C, F, G, Z. The same thing with Hebrew. Bet, ayin, Aleph, Mem, Tav. So that's what the goal of this class is. Okay, every week you're going to have a slide and it's going to show you what we're going to learn for the week. So we're going to learn approximately 5 letters and approximately 1 to 2 vowel groups. And the reason why I say vowel groups, because unlike English, where you have the letter A and you have the letter E, you have vowel groups. We have A vowels and E vowels, and we'll explain more about that. Okay, the letters Mem, Tav, Hey, and Nun are the most commonly used letters in the alphabet in the Hebrew language. So these are the ones we are working first. And as you'll know when we get to the end, by learning these letters and some vowels, you can already make words. Okay, this is the letter mem. Okay, mem is what we call the phonetic way to say mem. So if we're saying A, B, C, D, we're in English, we just say A, B, C, D. But Aleph, Bet, Vat, Tav, Gimel, they all have longer names, and that's a translate name. It's just our way of saying it in the Hebrew. Okay. How do we remember what an M or a mem is? Okay. Well, some people say it's a mountain. You go up the mountain, you go down the mountain, there's a river here, there's a tree on the mountain. Some people say it's like a volcano, and here's the magma and the flow, the lava goes down here. Some people say it's a molehill, and here's the little mole sitting on top of his hill. You may have a totally different way to remember this. These are just some of the ways that I know from teaching adults and kids throughout the years to teach it. Okay, so like I said, the mountain with the hole lets the river run through, the magma flume flow, and the plume flow, and the molehill. The important thing is the mem. This mem has a hole in it. Okay. Tav. Okay. When I teach adults how to remember what tav is, it's important to know that this has this top piece that goes down. Okay. And later on, you'll see that it kind of sort of looks like there's other letters put together. This is a leg, and here's a toe. So we always say tav, okay, has a toe. That's one way to remember it, the toe down here. And I also tell adults, if you're old enough to remember who Elvis is, think about here's Elvis's toupee. He's singing a hunka birdie love, and he's tapping his toe to it. So that's one way to remember tav. So the toupee and the toe. Okay, Aleph is a letter that has no sound today. There used to be a whole host of gutturals and airy type pronunciation, which we do not do. In fact, one of the ways I explain this is I had a friend in high school who was from Africa, and she lived in a place, in a tribe, and her tribe was called the Xhosa tribe. So in her tribe, she had a click. It was Xhosa. And the Aleph, a long time ago, used to have a sound. It used to be a guttural area. Like if you think about, we say ah, we would go ah. Like before, just a microsecond before, we're pushing air through our vocal cords. So some of these sounds have been lost, and this is one of them. So when you say Aleph, technically, you're not saying anything anymore. One of the ways to remember Aleph is if you have this little end piece here and you fold it over, it actually makes an A. And that's important to know. Here's the hay. So there's many ways to remember the hay. Some people like to think of it as a house. So here's the house, and there's a hole here in the side, and you can stand in here and look out your window or your hole from your house. Some people like to think of it as a haystack, and there's a piece of hay that fell down. However you want to think about it. Nun. There's a couple different ways to think of nun. Sometimes people think of it as nothing, like it really doesn't have any distinguishing figures. It's nothing. Some people like to say, if you look at it this way, there's a nun and she's on her knees praying. So nun. There's a couple different ways, and some of them we'll just have to learn. Okay, I want to explain block print quickly. Block print is a type of script. And so as we mentioned, there is no uppercase and lowercase. And sometimes new learners can get confused between the uppercase and lowercase, but really it's a script change. So this is block script, and I find that it is the easiest for people to start learning Hebrew with. And this is why. Okay, here we have our letters that we're looking at this week, which is Mem, Tav, Aleph, Hey, and Nun. Up here, you'll see these are the different versions you can find of typeface print. We have a print version. We have the standard Mizora Hebrew Torah print. We've got the computer block print, which is the one of the two that we'll use. We have the Rashi, which is very decorative and hard to read. And then we have the cursive, okay? We will use two main types, the standard block, the computer block, okay? And you may wish to learn cursive. So that is entirely up to you, and we'll talk about that later. But for instance, cursive, if you really like to write, cursive is great. I find that sometimes adults who have learned cursive, after years of doing cursive a certain way, learning to write cursive backwards is very difficult. So it's hard for us to space. It's hard. So I find that the block print is easier. But however, if you enjoy writing, please go ahead and do whichever type of cursive or type of printing you would like to learn when we get to our writing section. Okay, this is what we call a speed drill. So a speed drill is just a way for you to look at the letter, look at the paper, and say the letter out loud while you're looking at the paper. And the reason why this is important is because it actually connects two of your body and learning centers together. In fact, if I could get you to march while you were doing it, you would have three connected, and that would be the best. And that's a learning technique. But here we go. So what we'll do is Hebrew starts from right to left, okay? And we'll talk more about that later in the slides. So what you do is you have the first letter Mem, okay? So we would say Mem, 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 Mem. And line 2 is letter Tav. So we would say Tav, 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 Tav. Line 3 is Aleph. So you'd say Aleph, 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 Aleph. Line 4 is Hey. So we'd say Hey, 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 Hey. And line 5 is Nun. So we'd say Nun, 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 Nun. And we're just getting to connect those to our brain, which is really important. Okay. Of course, it's going to get harder. And the second speed drill is mixing the letters up, not only for the letters we've just learned in the week, but eventually we will have speed drill 1, which is the letters straight, speed drill 2, which is the letters we've learned this session, and then speed drill 3, which is a combination of all the letters we have learned to date. So we keep building on what we've learned every week. So for instance, speed drill 1, we again start from the right. And so our first letter is Mem, Hey, Mem, Hey, Mem, Tav. Line 2 would be Tav, Aleph, Tav, Nun, Tav, Mem, Tav. Line 3 would be Aleph, Aleph, Hey, Aleph, Mem, Aleph, Nun. And line 4 would be Hey, Tav, Nun, Hey, Mem, Hey, Aleph. Line 5 would be Nun, Hey, Nun, Aleph, Nun, Mem, Tav. So that's how the speed drills go. Vowels. Okay, this is sometimes confusing to people. All I'm trying to get you to understand in this slide is where to look for the vowels. And the reason why I'm doing this is because you will find that if you open up a Siddur or some Hebrew text, especially anything that has to do with Torah reading, and you will find that there are more symbols besides the vowels. So, for instance, if this box represents a letter, so for instance, a letter would be in here, say a mem would be in this box, okay? You would look underneath the box and there could be a letter there, okay? And I'm going to skip way to the end because that's the next easiest one. You see the box here, say we put a letter mem in that box, okay? You could look on top, on the left side to the top, and there could possibly be a letter up there, okay? There also could be a letter in the middle of a vav right here, or in the middle of a letter. And in the specific case of a vav, there could be a letter right above here. And that would be, like, say we'd have a mem here, we have a vav here, there could be a letter, a vowel there, a vowel there, and that would be a vowel. Okay, I know it is confusing. You can refer back to this. I'm just letting you know that you'll never find a vowel on the front side of a letter. There'll never be a vowel before a letter. So if this is our first letter in our word, there'll never be a vowel here. If there's something here, it's not a vowel. That's all I'm trying to explain, okay? If you find a vowel on the inside corner of a letter, it's not a vowel, and you'll learn that later when we get to shin and sin. So vowels are on the outside corner, in the middle, or underneath. That's where you find them, okay? Okay, now this is our first vowel group. And what I really want you to know about the vowel group is this. These are all ah. So as long as when you see one of these symbols, you say the word ah, you're absolutely 100% correct. So if you see what we call down here, hataf, patak, okay, it's an ah sound. The only difference, as you can tell, is how long you hold the vowel. And that is personally different for every person. So for instance, hataf, patak would be ah, like maybe cat, ah. The ah is very short. Okay, then you have patak, which is short. And if you think of patak with your face, patak, one of the ways to remember these vowels is with the hataf, patak, and the patak. When you say an ah, you go ah, 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 cat. And the vowel is kind of a straight line. So imagine that's your teeth, okay? Ah, okay? Also, the kamats. If you've ever been to the doctor in the old days, some of us, and he took a tongue depressor and he presses down and he said, open up and say, ah. In the back of your throat, there's that little piece that hangs down called the uvula. And that's kind of what that kamats looks like, is your uvula. And so just think, ah, and it's all about how long you hold it. So in the beginning, you won't have a developed length. So when you're saying we have a mem here and we're going to add the kamats. So we'd say ma. Okay. It's whether you say ma, 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 we don't really hear that very much until we add other letters and until we develop more of a sense of how we're speaking. So all I'm looking for is ah, just an ah, okay? Maybe when we get to a few words, you'll be able to do the long ah, but, you know, mostly just ah. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how we put these together. If we have a mem, and we added a kamats, it would be ma. We have a hey, and we added the kamats, it'd be ha. We have a noon, and we added the kamats, it'd be a na. If we have an aleph and we add the kamats, it would be an ah. And if we have a tav and we added the kamats, it'd be ta. And essentially, it's the same thing with patak. Ma, ha, na, ah, ta. Sorry, excuse me. Same thing with hataf patak. Ma, ha, na, ah, ta. So that's how the ahs go. Okay. The good way to remember, or at least eliminate what vowel it is if you don't remember, is ah vowels are only found below the letter. So this is what it could look like with several different kinds of ah vowels. Remember, there are some vowels that you can find up above, and there's some you can find in the middle of the letter, but you will always and only find ahs below the letter. So you already know if it's below the letter, there's a good chance it's going to be an ah. Okay, what kind of ah? That's what we need the symbols for, but it's going to be below. So for instance, here's how it would look being written. So it'd be ma, and we read up and down here. Ha, na, ah, ta. That's how that works. Okay, here's what we call vowel drill. So when we do the vowel drill, we're looking for sound. So this is all about sound production. So before we said mem, hey, here we're just going to do the sound. So the sound of the mem is m, right? So m. And we have an ah here, okay? So m and an ah is ma, okay? Hey and an ah is ha. Noon and an ah is na. Aleph, which there is no sound, so I can't go ah. So aleph and an ah is ah. Tav and an ah is ah. Okay. And that is a patak. You don't necessarily, like I said, need to know the names, but if you do know the names sometimes, it's a little bit easier to communicate what we're talking about. Here's hataf patak. That's our shortest one. So tav and a hataf patak is ta. Noon and ah is na. Mem, ma, and ah is ma. Aleph and ah is ah. Hey and ah is ha. And the same thing with kamats. Ah and kamats is ah. Mem and kamats are ma, and ah is ma. Tav and ah is ta. Noon and ah is na. So that is a vowel speed drill. Okay, now we have what we call the E family of vowels. And when you think of E, I want you to think of the E. E too. So we have ah, E. There's 3 vowels. The pink one is a little bit different. That one is called the shava. In the very beginning, the shava really doesn't make a sound. In the very beginning, when you first learn, most of the Hebrew words you will encounter, the shava is what we call a syllable marker. It tells you where to break the syllable of a word up at. And I call it, with the kids, I sometimes call it a stopper vowel. And I'll explain that later. It just means when you're breaking up a word, sometimes when we do multi-syllable words, we need to know where to stop for our pronunciation. And that just tells us what part of the word is together, if we have like a compound word, and then where does the next part of the other compound word go together. Okay, so we have shava, that's the pink. Now we're going to go up here and we have hirik, short, and hirik, long. And it's E. Now, the dot is below. It's found below on both ones. But you'll notice right here, this is in black, okay? And that is actually a consonant. That's a yod. That's like our Y. And you know how when we learn English, we say A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y? same thing. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. We're just doing it with symbols, but here's the yod. And what the yod does is it takes this E sound and makes it longer. Now, in days gone by, this would have been pronounced a teeny bit different, but today the sounds are so similar, it just extends that sound out. So for instance, if this is our mem here, so we know mem makes the m sound, so we have m, and we add a short hirik, that'd be me, okay? And we have the m, and we have the short, or the long hirik, sorry, and that makes me. So we have me. Think of it, we, okay? That's a good way to think of it. We don't have a we precisely in Hebrew though. So, or C, we will have a S sound, C versus C, okay? The next one is hey, and with the short hirik, that's he, and then with the long hirik, that's he, okay? Noon is n, with the short is ni, with the long, it's ni, okay? Aleph has no sound until we get to the short, then it's E, and for long, it's E, okay? Then Tav right down here, again, has T sound. With the short, it's T, and with the long, it's T. So think of it as a single E if you're short and a double E if you're long. That's another way to think of it. Okay, so those are your E vowels. Now, when we do get to the vocal shva, it's very, very short. So it would be like an E. So, but that will be, actually, I don't even think we're going to get to that in this class. So vocal shvas are usually not till you start to get farther in for Torah training. Most of the time, they are considered syllabification points, so you know where to break your letters. Okay. So here is another vowel speed drill. So we know we have the E, the harik, we have the shava, and we have this is the harik short. We have the harik, or the shava, sorry. And we have the harik long. So the harik, we have me, he, ni, e, t. And for shava, technically, this is a tricky one. It's t, n, m, he, he. Okay. So, however, if we're doing the shava super, super short, like the vocal one, just to explain what the difference would be, it would be ti, ni, me, e, he. And I say it way high because it's so super fast. It's hard for me to show you other than to raise my voice, but you don't really raise your voice like a mouse when you're doing it. Okay. Here's the harik long. So we have E, me, he, T, and ni. Okay. This is confusing, especially because I don't have a good word to teach you how to do this. So I'm just illustrating this. I don't expect you to understand this tonight. What I do want you to do is know where this chart is and be able to find it. And really, basically, reading a Hebrew word, I need you to learn two things from this today. You read from right to left, and you read on a zigzag. So for instance, we have a word over here on the side, okay? The word is gadol, okay? We see our first consonant. This is a gimel. It makes a g sound, okay? We have a kamatz and ah. We learned that tonight. So we're starting this side, so we read our consonant first, g, and we have an ah. So the first sound is ga, okay? Now we're going to move one step over to the left, and we find a consonant, okay? Are there any vowels? No. Okay, so we go God. So we've got God, okay? G-A-D, God. That's our first part of this word, okay? Now we look over here, okay? And this is that vav, and there's a vowel point above it, and that's an O, and we'll explain that later. But just know right for today, it's an O. So we have God. That's our first part of our word. Now we have an O, so we start with the O, and then we look over to our partner right here, and that's a lamed, which we'll learn. So it's ol. So it's God ol, God dol, okay? And we will practice sounding things out, but I just want you to know that you start from right to left and you read on a zigzag, okay? It goes up, down, over, and then it's up or down, over, up or down, over, and words tend to make a zigzag, okay? Unlike English, where we read straight across, all our letters and all our vowels and everything are straight in one line. We read on a zigzag here. Okay. And you have actually learned this week enough vowels and letters to know 5 words. You know a little bit more than this, but I chose 5 words. So for instance, this first letter, we have an aleph and a patak. Then we go to a tav and a kamatz, and then we have a hey. And when you sound this out, it is a, ta, okay? Now, if you notice something about this, okay, one thing you're going to notice is we said a, ta. We really didn't say anything about this hey, because one of the rules we'll learn, and might as well just hit you with one of the weird ones right away. When a hey is at the end of a word, it doesn't make a sound. Now, this is one of those things that it used to make a breathy sound. When you think of hey, you think of, okay? And so there are some people who say that a ta used to be a harder H at the end because it means male and it was more of a male sound. Who knows? But anyway, we don't pronounce the hey at the end anymore. Okay. The next one is me. And it's that, again, think of it as mem and ee, me, okay? And the funny thing that I use to teach kids how to remember this, if you're interested in also knowing what the word means, some people would rather just figure out how to read first, and some people want to know both. But one of the things that I try to teach the kids is if you think you want to know what me means, if you think of who me, it's you say me, but really it's who me. So I don't know if that helps you or not. So the next one is ma. And again, you'll notice when an aleph is anywhere, at the end included, and there's no vowel, it does not make any sound at all. And again, that's because that used to have a guttural or a breathy sound to it. Ta, it just doesn't, it's not reproducible. We don't speak that way anymore. Okay, the last one is ani, and it goes faster, ani. So that means I am. And we have the aleph with the hatapatak, the N with the long hirik there, because you see the E there, and the Y, which is the yod, so ani. So those are the words we have learned with what we've learned so far. Okay, do I think that you know everything that I just taught you and you have it committed to memory? Well, if you do, I'm jealous. Happy jealous for you, as I like to say, but no. If you don't use it and don't continue to work with it, you will lose it. How do I know? Studies and personal experience. I know for me, I have had to reteach myself Hebrew in my older age because when I learned it and used it before, I never kept it up. So while you're in this class, I ask you to please read for 5 minutes a day. And you're going to read your speed drills. So there's 4 pages of speed drills that I note that are the ones you'll go back to, as well as a PDF for reading. that I want you to go to as well. And then I have a writing exercise that if you write for 5 minutes, it takes about 5 minutes to do all 5 letters. And you can do that about 3 times a week. If you do those both, reading every day for 5 minutes and writing every day, writing at least 3 times a week, you will find that you are able to really pick this up so that by the end of the class, I can do a test for each person and I can give you a bunch of letters on a flashcard and you'll be able to just go letter, 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 letter. Okay. And that's what we're going for. Okay. Now, if you have a question, I want to let you know, please post it to the class stream. That's in the Google Classroom, because if you have the question, probably someone else does too. Unless it's a specific computer question to your computer, which maybe I can help you, maybe I can't, but you will actually probably be helping someone else. Okay. I am going to switch over to another part of the screen. Okay, let's see. Hold on, bear with me for one moment. Okay, this is the Hebrew School classroom coming up in just a moment. This is where you will find everything in the class, okay? If you need access to the class, this is the class code. It's really big. You just go to the classroom, type in the code, and you are all set, okay? Once you get into the classroom, okay, you will see this is called the stream. And what it is just an old type of chat board system. Lessons, I post lessons here. I post announcements here. I post the slides. So the slides I just showed you are right here. And I spell comments. And then I give you reference materials, okay? And this is the tools that you will be using. Down here on the February 15th post, you'll notice there's a PDF here called Hebrew Alef-Bet writing exercise. I encourage you to practice Hebrew writing in one of 2 ways. There is a Hebrew app on iOS and Android, and it is free, and it's called Write It Hebrew. Write, W-R-I-T-E-I-T, then Hebrew. If you're going to use the app, you also will probably need to look at a chart, because if you don't do the word exactly correctly in the app, you won't get credit and it won't let you move on. If you're going to do the paper portion, okay, or maybe you're going to do a combination. When you're waiting at the doctor's appointment, you're going to do your app, which is when I like to do it. When you're sitting at your house and you just did your reading, maybe then you're going to then try it by hand. The reason I have this paper for you is it's 2 pages, okay? And it is set so that if you print out 3 copies of these, what you'll do is for week 1, we learned Mem, Aleph, Tav, Nun, and Hey, the 5 most used consonants in the Hebrew alphabet. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to your writing page, and as you see here, this first line is the Aleph. So you're going to actually practice writing this block Aleph. So here's a sample right here, what it looks like, and you're going to write your Alephs. Then you're going to go down and you're going to find your Hey. Here's Hey. So you're going to write a line of Heys, okay? And then we have Mem. You're going to write a line of Mems. And let's see. And then our Tav is at the very end, and you're going to write a line of Tavs, okay? Then what you'll do is say you did this on Monday, oh, by the way, that should take 5 minutes, about 5 minutes. Then on Wednesday, you take page 2 and you go through and you write the same 5. And then on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, whatever your observance is, you're going to do your last page. And so what that does is by the time you are done with the whole entire class, you will have practiced each letter 3 times, and then your page will be completely full at the end. So we have 3 complete pages. Now, for some of you, you may want to try cursive. Okay, so if you go up here on February 15th as well, it says there's a little paper outline here, and it says new material for class. I have what we call blank Hebrew writing paper. If you would like to try cursive, this is the paper you could print out. I'm sorry, it's not screen enabled, but you can print out that paper and you could use that for cursive. And then just follow on the slide. You'll see the cursive symbols, and there's one other place to get that from. But that's the writing paper. Okay. This one right here is called Hebrew Script Cursive Block Reference Chart. Okay. And this one is probably one of the most helpful charts. So this may be one that you want to print out if you're going to start a binder and put your writing together with the drills, the speed drills to practice during the week. If you're a printing person, like I am, I try to print some of the references I'll use over. This is one of those references. So you can see here we have Aleph right at top, okay? And it actually shows you, okay, for 1 you go down, 2 goes over, and 3 goes over. Or if you want to learn the script too, you make your C type shape first, and then you make your stick going down, and that's Aleph, okay? And so this is your writing chart. And it's a very useful writing chart, I find. Now, you also have a vowel chart, okay? And this is just a chart for you to print. And it just goes through Kamatz, Patak, and we learned Hataf, Patak, okay? And we learned, it says Churik, but that's actually Hurik, okay? So this is just, and we learned Shiva, that's a Shiva, okay? And this just has the most common vowels that we're going to learn, okay? Let me get rid of that one. Okay, now, if you need to post something to me and you have a question about anything I post, a piece of homework, you can post it in any of the class comments. So for instance, I had a student who said, okay, he was not sure where something was. I sent him the copy to this link and he's like, good, got him. So he posted it right in there. So right there, I know that he's got them. You can do that. You don't have to do that. But in that case, it was easy for me to just look on this screen. If you are signed into the program, you should get notices. If you have certain email addresses, non-Gmail addresses, we notice that there sometimes are a problem. And sometimes if you have certain email addresses, if I have a big PDF with lots of pictures in it to send you, it's hard. Some email addresses don't let them go through. So if you have an issue and you're not seeing something, come to the classroom stream first if you can. And then, of course, if not, then email me. Okay, now, if you hit the classwork, every week, you see down here, it says lesson 1. Lesson 1 will be posted. You'll have your summary slide posted there, which is the one that you may want to print out just to summarize what we went through. And then you'll have, for this week only, you have the Hebrew writing paper. Next week, you're going to have the summary slide 2, and you're going to have the Hebrew paper. Okay. This is, let me go back. Sorry. Okay. This is the Google Classroom Drive. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to screen big. Okay. Let me go back to here. Sorry about that. I clicked one button too many. Classroom. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we have our stream we talked about. We have our classwork we talked about. So pretty soon you'll see lesson 2. This is the people. So if you need to talk with another student, you can do that. And I'll leave everything open because we're all adults and everything I assume will be respectful. And if something changes, then I can just hide all that later. But okay, later on, we will have some items turned in and they show up as in green. And right now, the only thing that I have set for you is your registration. And so you can see some people have turned in their registration and some people have not. So, okay, let's go back to the stream. Okay, now we're going to go to classwork. So we go into the classwork and right up here, there's 2 things. One, there's the Google Calendar. And if you go in and look at the Google Calendar, you will see that there's an assignment. Okay, the registration was due on that date. That was your assignment for week 1. Okay, you will also see all our class schedule right here. So this class goes from the 22nd all the way to the 29th of March. Sorry, hopefully I'm not making anyone sick. Okay, that was the calendar. Okay, ask me later. Okay, now over here is the class drive folder. Okay, once you are signed in, you have access to the class drive folder. Okay, and I have more materials in here. Okay, in fact, but you can look in here and look at anything as well. Okay, let's go back though to, okay, let's go back to here. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is you could go all the way to the bottom. Okay, on February 13th, I have a link to one of the texts that we're going to use. And it's a PDF and it's our reading text and it's called Rashith Bina. And I ask that you actually can use the slides and you can use this printout, but don't share these if you're not registered for the class. And the reason is I'm not trying to be mean, but between this group and another group, we have been receiving materials that are free to use during class. And I have made slides out of some of the other materials. And the agreement is we can use the materials free as long as we let them know, like the students that are in the class and when the class starts and when the class ends. And that's all they ask for their data to keep the, for their data to keep the class, knowing how many people are using their materials. It's the National Jewish Outreach Project. They are doing Shabbat Across America. They do a lot of great programs. And this is some of their material. The slides are entirely mine. But because I'm using some of their materials in the slides, I really would ask that you not share the slides unless someone is registered for this class. So if Aunt Susie wants to learn how to read Hebrew, that's great. Let's sign her up and get her in class. So the first thing I want to show you when you download this PDF is the fact that it has this really great Alef-Bet Hebrew chart. You can print this out for reference, and it has different ways to remember everything. So for instance, we talked about Aleph, okay? It looks like an X, okay? We talked about Mem, and it looks like a mound or a mountain, okay? Let's see what they say for Hey. There, Hey. A half of a line on one side or a whole, okay? They don't say the house, I do. So where's Tav? Let's see. There's Tav. Okay, Tav. Looks like big toes, okay? So that's their Alef-Bet chart. And it is kind of helpful, and it gives you, it always gives you ways to know things, okay? Also on the bottom of this chart, you will see the Hebrew vowels. And I know the vowels are a little bit tricky and complicated, and we will spend much more time on the vowels, okay? Now, when we go down here, okay, I want to explain to you that their materials are in Alef-Bet order. But I find people learn better when they learn in order of being most used. So when you come down here, you would find the lesson that has Aleph, and this is Aleph. You see the Aleph there, okay? You see the Aleph on the page here. And this is the same thing that we did on our slides. So this is a vowel drill. So we're practicing the ah, which is the patak here. So again, we do ah, 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 ah. So part of your 5 minutes a day, instead of reading the slides, the 4 slides I said to read, you could read this, okay? And we will do some of this in class. Again, here's the Aleph. We're putting the Aleph in, 2 with the ah, since there's no sound. So we have ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. Now, why did I just show you going through and pointing this with my pointer as I went through this? Not because I don't think that you know how to do it, but because when we read Hebrew, and if we decide we want to start learning eventually in our future, a Siddur or the Torah, we need to get used to a what we call a yod or a pointer. So we're using this as the pointer. And also, just so you know, for psychology, brain learning methods, when you point with your pencil and you're moving your muscles and you're saying it and you're hearing it, you are engaging all 3 senses. And that has been known to create more stronger neural pathways, and you learn faster. So it's not because I don't think that you can't count or don't think that you can't do it or think that you need to actually do this, 21 times. It really has nothing to do with that. It's that repetitions of 3, doing 3 things in a group, your brain looking, hearing, and writing, they all together have been proven to help people, especially people with brain injury, learn faster. So if it works for them, it works for anyone. The other point that I want to point out here is in lesson 2, you will see there's Sephardic ah and Ashkenazic ah, okay? If you go to New York, if you're from New York, if you visit someone in some other more Chabad, more really modern Orthodox communities, Hasidic communities, you may hear the ah. They put an ah in it. And we are not going to learn the Ashkenazic pronunciation because Israel today, and as Israel grows in the Hebrew language, it's returning to its Sephardic roots and its Sephardic pronunciations. There's a lot of Jews returning to the homeland of Sephardic pronunciation, and they have found that some of the Coptic pronunciations are very close to traditional Hebrew, which is more of a Sephardic pronunciation. So there's a whole lecture you can do on why we say ah versus ah. So if you see a word and you're not understanding, why is someone saying mishlos manot and someone saying mishlos manos? And it's only a difference between Sephardic and Ashkenazic pronunciation. Can it really kick you in the brain sometimes and be like, what are they saying? Absolutely. But think that when we come to the sounds S's and T's, ah and ah, those are probably going to be what we think they are written in Hebrew and not how we're hearing them because of the pronunciation. So Ashkenazic is the way of the future. Most Hebrew schools teach it that way. Most synagogues pronounce it that way when they do their Torah. And so that's what we're going to learn. Okay. And then again, what you would do is we would go through and we would find, okay, we learned mem. So lesson mem, we would say ma, and we learned this, me, ma, me, ma, me, me. Okay. Then they threw in an aleph. So we have e, me, ma, me, ma, me. Okay. If you really want to challenge yourself, you'll notice we have some words here. So we have e, ma, e, me, Ima. And this is a word, a letter you don't know. They did throw in a couple that you don't know. So you just skip what you don't know until you know it. And here's another one that you don't know. So that's what I'm getting at. This is a great reader. When you get to the words that you haven't, like this is Ima again, you say the one you know. And if you get to one you don't know, this happens to be Ba. We'll learn that later. You then just skip it. But this is another good way to get your 5 minutes of reading in. And then all you do again is go find the ones that you know, the Hays, okay? And we'll go from there. I do say don't work ahead if you don't have to. I find that it tends to be not so much helpful. Okay, if anybody has any questions, definitely write it down. But the last thing I wanted to say is that, hold on a second. Oh, wrong thing. Okay. Okay, what I wanted to say is just put all your questions and comments in there. I will post this either on YouTube or I will post this in the Google Classroom, whichever works easier or best. And I can't wait to see everyone for lesson 2. Thank you.